Okay, welcome to chapter 96, Kapitel Tzadik Vav. You're using the Kahas Tehillim. We are on page 118. Chapter 96, again, it should look familiar, just like last chapter should have looked familiar. This chapter also is a chapter that we read in Kabbalah Shabbos. It's the second chapter of Kabbalah Shabbos. So we start with L'chon Ranna, and then we go to Shir Hashem, and it's definitely on some level a continuation. So let's go through it once in a quick manner with a basic translation, and then we'll come back to it again. Shiru L'Hashem Shir Chadash. Sing for God a new song. Shiru L'Hashem Kol Haaretz. Sing for God or to God Kol Haaretz, the whole land, all the earth. Shiru L'Hashem. Sing to God. Baruch Hu Shmai. Bless His name. And Basru. Proclaim B'Yom L'Yom, from day to day, Yeshuasai, His salvation. Sapru V'Goyim. Say the story of or praise by the nations, Kvaydei, Hashem's glory, Hashem's kavod, B'chol ha'amim, by all the nations, Niflaisav, His wonders. Ki Gadol Hashem, because God is great, Umahulal me'oid, and very much praised, very much praised. Noida is already another word. It's not praise, it's not song, it's not about happiness, etc. Noida is more of the idea of awe. Noida hu, Hashem is when you look, Hashem is awesome, but in today's lingo, awesome maybe would have the wrong connotation. But the real idea of awe, which comes from the word awesome, Hashem is awesome, al kol elokim, over all other gods. Why? Kol elikei amim elilim, for all the gods of other nations, elilim are for naught. V'Hashem, and God, shamayim asa, He created the heavens, or He made the heavens. Pasuk 6, Hayid v'hadar lefanov, majesty and splendor are in front of Him. Oiz v'siferes, might and beauty, b'mikdashai, in His temple. Havu Hashem mishbechei samim, bring to Hashem, or Havu, let's go, maybe more of a proper translation, but it's an idea of bringing and going together to Hashem, mishbechei samim, the families of the nations. Havu Hashem, bring to Hashem, kavod va'oz, honor and strength and might. Havu Hashem, bring to Hashem, kevod shemai, the honor of His name. Se'u mincha, bring forward an offering, uvayu lechatzreisav, and come to His courtyard. Pasuk 9, Hishtachvu Hashem b'hadras kodesh, bow down to Hashem b'hadras kodesh, with splendor and holiness. The idea of holiness in a manner of splendor. Chilu mipanav kol haaretz, be fearful or tremble, right? I think tremble. Yeah, here it translates tremble. Tremble away from Him, in front of Him, kol haaretz, the whole land. Imru v'Goyim, they say in the nations, Hashem Malach, Hashem is King, or the truth is, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, Malach is really in past tense. Af Tikoin, Hashem will, Tikoin is establish, Tevel, the world, Bal Timoit, that it shall not falter, and Yodin Amim, and He'll judge the nations, Bimei Sharim, in truthfulness. Yeah, Meishar means straight, so straightness. Yismecho Shamayim, the heavens will be happy. The Sagel Aretz, the earth will be happy. Yiram Hayam, the sea, the water will roar forward. Umlayai, and everything that is filled inside of that water. Pasuk 12, Yali Sadai, V'chol asher bai, even the fields will be happy, and everything in the fields will be happy. Oz yiranenu kol atzayar, and that's when all of the trees of the forest will sing, be happy as well. Lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem, kiva, He comes, kiva, it says again kiva, for He comes, Lishbeit haaretz, to judge the land. Yishbait Tevel B'tzedek, he judges the world with righteousness, the Amim and the nations, Be'emunasai, literal translation is the idea of having faith in Hashem. Okay, the truth is, it's one of the easier kapitlach, the easier chapters to understand on a very basic, on a simple manner. It translates well, it flows well. So we're gonna go through it again and maybe add some insight as well. The line on top of the chapter says, the time will yet come when man will say to his fellow, come, let us sing to Hashem. Right? It's going to come a time, what's it referring to? Obviously referring to a time of Mashiach, a time in the future where one will tell the fellow, come, Shiru Hashem, Shir Chadash, come, let us sing to Hashem. The Radak says, and remember we talked about this already for the last couple of chapters, this is referred to towards Moshe Rabbeinu. So that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying this about the time of Geulah. He's prophesying about a time of redemption, about a time of Geulah, similar to the previous chapter that we talked about in a similar manner. And he says, let's go and sing. Let's go and sing. So that's one thing. The Radak also mentions that it's an idea of one person telling his fellow, as it says on top of the chapter, one person telling his fellow, let us go sing to Hashem, Shir Chadash, a new song. And the new song we're going to talk about soon when we get to verse number 1. Also in the form of introduction, the Radak mentions that there were many previous songs and psalms, right? There's many songs that were sung towards Hashem in thanks for Hashem delivering the Jewish people, etc., etc. But this is referring to a new song that will be sung not only in Yerushalayim, but Kol Haaretz, it will be sung in the whole land across the world. It's interesting, Rashi comes up over here at the beginning and he says that since the end talks of a day of judgment, right? We say at the end, Hashem is coming to judge the land. A day of judgment. When is the day of judgment? The day of judgment is in a time of Mashiach, before Mashiach comes. So if the end is talking about a day of judgment, so it must be that the whole chapter, the whole psalm is talking about a day of, talking about the future and talking about when Mashiach comes. So that is in a form of introduction. And with that, we're going to go inside pasuk by pasuk, and we will start with pasuk number 1. Shiru Hashem Shir Chadash. So what's this new song? What's a new song? New song is not something that we come across of. We have certain ways of praising Hashem. It's actually very interesting. It's something that was fascinating to me when I did research in the class that we did. Not the Monday night class that we did, not before this class, before the class before this, right? Before this class was a Haggadah class, and before that we did a Siddur class. So it's always text-based class. So the text-based, so when we talked in Tehillim, in the Siddur, so one of the things that when I did some research fascinated me is that when the sages, and we're talking about 2,000 years ago, when the Anshe Knesset Agdela, when they came together and they said, okay, there's no temple anymore, so therefore we're going to make sure that everybody davens 3 times a day. But what are they going to use to daven 3 times a day? What form of prayer? Is it going to be Shiru Hashem Shir Chadash? Are they going to start a new song? Is it going to be a new type of praise of Hashem? Like, what are they going to do? Right? Moses didn't come down from Mount Sinai with a prayer book, with a siddur, right? By the way, the proof that the Torah came down from Mount Sinai is that the Torah that we have today, whether in this shul or any other shul across the world, or a Torah that they find today that's 500 years old, doesn't matter. They're all exactly the same. It shows the divinity of the Torah, that it's really something divine. So it's impossible. Nobody could do anything that would break that. Though we have other things like the Siddur that was, so to speak, human-made, even though it was with divine intuition, and there was definitely it was made by tzaddikim, by righteous people, etc., etc. But still, it had human hands. So therefore, so they have an argument. Should we say it this way? Should we say it this way? Should we say Avas Olam? Should we say Ava Rabba? All the different arguments, for lack of a better way to put it, but positive, good arguments that we have when it comes to something, let's say, like the Siddur or the Gemara, when it comes to halacha, how we pass in halacha. There were arguments. Why? Because that's something that has to be developed by the people. So when they came, when the Anshe Knesset Agdela, a few thousand years ago, 2,000 years ago, they came and they said, now we have to institute a form of prayer, right? Some of the prayers came in afterwards, but the institution of davening 3 times a day and the beginning of the prayer book of what we have today is from then. So what did they say? They said, "What are we going to create words to praise Hashem? How are we going to find the right words to praise Hashem? We can't find the right words to praise Hashem. Whatever we're going to say is not enough, right?" So what did they do? They took words from Hashem. What does it mean taking words from Hashem? They took words from the Torah, words that are used already in Tanakh in praise of Hashem, and those words that are already used in Tanakh to praise Hashem, and they put it in the form of a prayer book, so that way we could use it. So we're not creating a new song. It's just it hit me when I was preparing this chapter. Shir Chadash is something very unique. We don't usually have this idea of Shir Chadash. It ain't Chadash Tachas Hashemesh. There's nothing new. We don't create something new. Everything is based on the Torah, and it all starts from there, and that's where it goes from. So to say something is Shir Chadash, what's this idea of Shir Chadash? And the only time there's going to be Shir Chadash, that there's going to be something new, is Taka in the time of Mashiach. That's why it's referring to a time of Mashiach. In time of Mashiach, there will be something new. Not only this idea of Shir Chadash, of a new song, there's even a concept of Torah Chadasha Miti Teitzei, that there'll be, so to speak, a new Torah. What that means, we'll wait for Mashiach to come and explain it to us. But there'll be even Torah Chadasha, which is something that's an impossibility today. When Mashiach comes, there will be. So the Sfarnu says that why will there be a Shir Chadash? Why will there be a new song in time of Mashiach? Because what will be Mashiach? Mashiach is going to be a new world. It's going to be a new world order. It's going to be a new world. It's going to be on a much, he uses words of beauty, a more beautiful world, etc., a world of peace, etc. So therefore, it's going to demand Shir Chadash, a new song. The Alshich comments on Kol Haaretz, on this Shir Chadash that's going to be Kol Haaretz across the world, the whole world, says because when Mashiach comes, it's going to be that Tumah will be eradicated, impurity will be eradicated from the world. The pasuk says that the spirit of impurity will go away from the land. So since there will be no more impurity, there'll be no more Tumah. So everyone will call in the name of Hashem, and that's why Shirul Hashem Shir Chadash, Shirul Hashem Kol Haaretz. When Mashiach comes, everybody will call in the name of Hashem. The Medrash Tehillim mentions that over here in this pasuk, look at the first pasuk, Shirul Hashem, Shir Chadash, and Shirul Hashem. Actually, no, it's not. It's not the Shir Chadash. Shirul Hashem Shir Chadash is number 1. Shirul Hashem Kol Haaretz and Shirul Hashem Baruch Hu Shmai. There's 3 times, also at the beginning of the second pasuk, 3 times that it says Shiru. The 3 times of Shir correspond to the 3 daily tefillos, and he goes into details of exactly which one is which. But the idea of the 3 sing to Hashem is connected with the 3 daily davenings. The Mamlei says that if you look at of the first 4 words, not the first 4 words, the last 4 words of so there's 8 words in the first verse. So there's the first 4 words, and then there's the last 4 words. Shirul Hashem Kol Haaretz. If you look at the Rashi Tevis, you have over there Shin, Lamed, Kaf, and Hey. And if you scramble them, so if you take the last one, the first one, the third one, and the second one, right? You have the word Haskel. Haskel, which has the root word of Seichel. So the Mamlei says that this is referring to a time that there's a reference, if I remember correctly, it's from Isaiah, it's from Isaiah, a reference to the time of Mashiach, that it will be a time that the whole earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, as much as the water covers on the earth, right? That there's so much water, so that's how much there'll be the knowledge of Hashem, and that's the reference over here of the Rosh Tevis, the first letters of Haskell, that this will be at a time that there'll be the knowledge of Hashem. Pasuk Beis, pasuk number 2. So Shirul Hashem Baruch Hu Shmai and Basar Miyam Liyam Yeshua. It's two things over here. First of all, sing to Hashem and bless His name, and proclaim daily Yom L'Yom, from day to day, Yeshua His salvation. So the Mitzvah says that every day there'll be another salvation to report about. If you're saying Basru Miyom L'Yom Yeshua, you're saying to report daily Hashem's salvation, it means that every day there's a form of salvation. Sometimes big, sometimes small, but even a small salvation is worth, Basru is worth reporting, proclaiming about. The Radak says that the story of salvation will be so great when Hashem brings us to the Geula, when Hashem brings us to the redemption. This story is going to be so great, and it will be so cherished by the Jewish people that every day it'll be like telling it anew. It's going to be such an amazing story that every day it will be Basar Miyam L'Yam Yeshua. Every day you're going to want to say it again and again. It's going to be like something new. The Mamleya says that the news about salvation is not far away, and therefore it's mentioned every single day. So it's like the idea, Mashiach's coming. Mashiach now, Mashiach's coming today. We learned it last chapter, and the Rebbe would always talk about Mashiach because there's something imminent. So when you say that, proclaim it day to day, which means that you're waiting for it to happen every single day. Mamleis also continues that there's also many salvations that happen every day, and therefore they should be mentioned. It shouldn't be something that we ignore. Something similar to what the Mitzvah says. Yeah. Okay. Pasuk Gimel. Pasuk number 3. Sapru again, Kvedei, educate, tell this story. Sapru is from the word Sipur. It's saying the story by the nations, by the nations of the world, about Hashem's glory, about Hashem's kavod, and by all the nations, b'chol ha'amim niflais of His miracles, His wonders. So that's Pasuk Gimel. The Radak says that it's referring to the honor that Hashem restores by the Jewish people amongst the nations, that it's something that sometimes we lose amongst the nations. We lose that kavod, we lose that honor, and when Hashem restores that, that's a sign of Mashiach. By the way, on some level at least, before October 7th we said it definitely much stronger, but on some level, the honor and the respect that the Jewish people have around the world. We're not talking about anti-Semites. We're talking about people that couldn't care less, right? But now that they're recognizing the strength of the Jewish people, the honor of the Jewish people definitely is stronger. It could definitely use a boost. But that's a story for another time. The Mamleya says that Pasuk Gimel, that Pasuk number 3, it's referring to that the Yidden should spread the news between the nations about Hashem honoring them and the miracles that He did for them. So when the Yidden talk about the honor that Hashem bestows on the Jewish people and the miracles that Hashem does for the Jewish people, so that adds not only honor to the Jewish people, but it even adds a certain level of kavod, a certain level of honor to Hashem Himself. The Al-Shich says, Sapru Bagoyin, educate the nations, talk about it by the nations. So he says that this is talking about Hashem's honor in Golus Bavel. That Sapru Bagoyim, Kvaydai, that there was a certain honor that was felt during the Babylonian exile. What was unique about the Babylonian exile is that the Jewish people weren't scattered. That yes, they were taken out of the land of Israel and they were taken to Babylonia, but they weren't scattered. On the contrary, they had many massive cities of Jewish people, big yeshivas. The Gemara talks about all the different cities and the yeshivas that went on in Babylonia, to the extent that, side note, that many Jews didn't even come back for the rebuilding of the Second Temple because they got stuck there because it was a comfortable life, so to speak. So the Alshach says, the Sapra Gaim, there was a certain level of Hashem's glory still seen. Why? Because there wasn't the scattering of all the Jewish people. They were concentrated in one place. And then he says, B'chol ha'amim nifla Yosef, the second part of the pasuk, when it says, by all the nations, we talk about Hashem's wonders, this is referring to the Persian exile, where the Jewish people were much more spread out. So there, it wasn't about Hashem's glory, it was about Hashem's wonders, miracles that he did on behalf of the Jewish people. Pasuk Dalet, number 4. Ki gadol Hashem u'mehul miyad. Hashem is great and exalted and highly praised. Noida hu al kol elikim, that he is also awesome. Noida also, we talk about this often in Chassidic philosophy when we talk about the difference between awe and fear. This naida is a form of fear, but the awe form of fear. When you look towards what Hashem has created, and you're in awe of it. Yesterday I was teaching. Yesterday, Sunday, I was teaching a class. I was substituting a class in the yeshiva, and we talked about this idea of the difference between awe and fear. It's something that most of the boys in the yeshiva are very familiar with. But I was trying to bring them across what's the idea of awe. Fear is very easy to understand. Anybody understands fear. There's enough things that I'm fearful of that if I wanted an example of fear, there's enough examples of fear. If I have fear of heights, that's a good example. If I'm afraid of a dog, it's a good example. If I'm afraid of driving, if I'm afraid of crossing the street, or if I'm just afraid of real things that you should be afraid of, walking on your roof on a slanted roof, which that's the real idea of fear, right? Hashem gives us fear in order to make sure that we don't do something stupid. We should be afraid. We should have fear of crossing the street when it's a red light. Why? Because it's a real fear that maybe a car will come, right? And that should prevent us from doing something that we shouldn't be doing. So that's really what fear is all about. So there is a concept in our relationship with Hashem. It's called Yiras Ha'inish, that a person doesn't transgress or sin. Why? Because he's fearful that Hashem will punish him. But that's a very low-level relationship with Hashem. If my whole relationship with Hashem is because I'm afraid that he's going to strike me with lightning or he's going to punish me for something, that's not a good relationship. Can you imagine if that's a spousal relationship that you have, or a parent-child relationship? It's never a healthy relationship if it's all based on fear. There is that element of it, but really the idea of fear of Hashem, which is a very important part of our divine service, is not the fear of punishment, it's the fear in the awesomeness of Hashem. So I was talking to the kids, I asked them if they were ever by Niagara Falls. So I had a hard time with them trying to explain the idea. I tried to explain how you feel when you see the falls. They had a hard time trying to express themselves. I was asking them for their feelings standing by the falls. They were lost. But it was cute. It was a cute conversation. But I asked them, you're standing by Niagara Falls. What are you feeling? What are you feeling? Okay, so they weren't in tune so much with their feelings. They couldn't come to an answer. I told them what you might be feeling, but it's not that you have to feel this way, right? But what you might be feeling is the awesomeness of the strength of the water. The amount of water that falls there every split second, that's literally going down over that rock and crashing down on the bottom, and the strength of that water, of what it creates, that whirlpool that it creates over there, etc. All those things. So when you look at Niagara Falls, my description of Niagara Falls is awesome. And awesome in a pretty fearful way. I'd stay very far away from Niagara Falls because you have to be careful. Now that's awe from something that is so awesome, right? So when you meditate about the Eibishter, when you meditate about Hashem, and you have awe, which is a form of fear, right? But it's not fear that Hashem will punish me if I do the wrong thing. That's a low-level relationship with Hashem. Know that I'm in awe of what Hashem has done for me, but even on a greater scale, for Niagara Falls, but for the world, the creation of the world? If Hashem could create a world, such a beautiful world, if Hashem could create such a beautiful nature, etc., I'm in awe of Hashem. Of course, I want to have a relationship with Hashem. How am I going to have a relationship with Hashem? Oh, I'll learn His Torah, do His mitzvahs, etc. So that's Naira. Naira is this idea of awe. So when we're referring to Hashem versus other gods, so to speak, how can you compare? One is awesome, one is not. That's the idea over here. Anyways, let's see some of the commentaries over here. Pasuk Dalet, right? So the Metzudah says that when he refers to other gods over here, he's referring to creations of Hashem, like the sun and the moon and the galaxies that idol worshippers worship. So that is Gadol Hashem. Hashem is greater than that. Naira al kol elikim. Hashem is greater than all of that. Obviously. Radak says that it's not referring to sun and moon and galaxies, it's referring to angels, also creations of Hashem. But ultimately, even the angels, they go and who do they praise? They go and they praise Hashem. The Alshich says that the first part of the pasuk might make you think that Hashem doesn't care about the details. The pasuk says that Hashem is great and tremendously praised, highly praised. So you might think that Hashem doesn't care about the details of what goes on here on earth, what goes on in the world, etc. But the second part of the pasuk, Nairahu al kol elikim, no, Hashem is awesome within everything. Al kol elikim, Hashem is involved in every single detail that goes on in this world. The Alshich continues, and the Alshich says that if Hashem's name is great in between the nations, as we said, we talk about Hashem in a great way between the nations of the world. So a person might ask, why if Hashem's name is already great, why do we have to talk about greatness? So the more we talk about Hashem's greatness, the more it brings us to awe of Hashem. So again, as I mentioned before, one of our divine services of our relationship with Hashem is Yiras Hashem. There's Avas Hashem, there's love of Hashem. We say it every day, multiple times a day. When we say the Shema, we say V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. We have a command to love Hashem. So that's Avas Hashem. But we also have Liyiras Hashem Elokecha. We also have the idea of awe, of fear of Hashem. And how do we get to that idea of awe of Hashem? The more we talk about Hashem's greatness, the more we meditate on Hashem's greatness, the more we delve into this idea of Hashem's greatness, that brings us to a level, to the element of awe of Hashem. Pasuk Hey. So we mentioned that Hashem is greater than all other gods. Right, so Kikola Likei Amim Elilim, for all the gods of the nations, Elilim are not, and Hashem Shamayim Asa, Hashem created the heavens. So the Radak says that all the gods and that the nations served. All the gods that the nation served, like the sun and the moon and the galaxies, so Elilim, they're for naught. The Metzudah says because they are also creations of Hashem. So ultimately, someone that's serving, there's a famous medrash of Ananas of Malka, right? That the king comes to town, and he and everybody's saying, "I'll have this minister stay by me. I'll have this minister." And the medrash continues, says, "There's one smart guy there," and he's saying, "Ananas Malka, I'll have the king stay by me." Everybody else is like thinking, "Hey, who are they going to host?" Right? We go straight to the top, and that's our relationship that we have with Hashem. Why would someone go to a creation of Hashem, to the sun, to the moon, etc., and serve idols, creations of Hashem, as opposed to dealing directly with Hashem? The Alshich brings up, and it's based on a story from our sages. The Alshich brings up, and he says that if all the other gods are nothing, right? They have no power. They're nothing. So then, why doesn't Hashem dispose of them? If they're serving the sun, dispose of the sun, then they won't serve the sun. So I mean, I was thinking about this, and I said, yeah, if they won't serve the sun, they'll find something else to serve. They'll find a stone to serve. I mean, like there'll always be something else to serve. But the Alshich continues, and the Alshich has a better comment than me, and he brings it based on a comment from our sages, that there was a Roman minister that once asked a question similar to this to a bunch of elders, a bunch of Torah scholars, to a bunch of elders, they answered the Roman minister and said, "Should Hashem destroy and deprive the world of the sun, the moon, or any other creation that Hashem has created just because of a few idiots?" So yeah, they have it wrong, but Hashem is not changing things because of it. The Al-Sheikh also says that Hashem specifically didn't create angels on the first day so that no one could say that they were involved in creation. Hashem created, Hashem Shamayim Asot, the last three words of Pasuk A, the fifth Pasuk. Hashem created the heavens, which means Hashem created everything, right? So you can't, because if angels were created on the first day, it says, oh, Hashem created angels because he needed help in order to create the world. No, Hashem didn't create angels. So Hashem, you can't say that Hashem needed help in creation. Pasuk number 6. Splendor in front of him, and ois, which is strength, which is might, ois v'siferes b'mikdashai, splendor and strength is in his mikdash, in his Beis HaMikdash. So the Radak says this pasuk is referring to the stars recognizing Hashem's splendor. It's that the stars are recognizing Hashem's splendor, and in his Beis HaMikdash, in his Mikdash, in his sanctuary, it's referring to the spiritual heavens when they recognize that Hashem is master over everything. The Sforno says that Hashem's splendor is found in the world of angels, and his might and beauty is found in the galaxies. That's what the pasuk is coming to refer to. That the two parts of the pasuk, one about Hashem's splendor in the world of angels and the beauty in the galaxies. The Alshich says that the pasuk is referring to a time when everybody will be righteous, when everybody will be tzaddikim, time of Mashiach, when everybody will be a tzaddik, and the righteous is Hashem's splendor. So Haid v'Hadar Lefanav, that when all the people that walk in front of Hashem will be splendor, will be splendid, which will be a time of Mashiach when everybody will be righteous. Pasuk Zayin. So the families, families of the nations bring, what are they bringing? So Rashi says, Havu Lashem Mishpais Amim, Havu Lashem Kavik Vais. What do they bring? These families will bring honor and strength, honor and might to Hashem. The Metzudah says that it's referring to what was said earlier. Earlier we said Sapru V'Goyim. We said that we should proclaim by the nations, talk about and say Hashem's honor and Hashem's might by the nations. So this is again continuing with that Havu Lashem Mishpais Amim. The Alshich says, in a case where some of the non-Jews might not listen to you, right? So in earlier psukim, it talked about the Jewish people talking about Hashem's greatness or Hashem's kavod or Hashem's awesomeness, etc. But sometimes you won't be able to get through to someone that to someone that's not Jewish, etc. So here he says that there's going to be those that will be inspired from the nations, and Havul Hashem Mishpchei Samim, those families from the nations of the world, they will spread the good word to the rest of their nation, to the rest of their families, etc. Pasuk Ches, Pasuk 8. Havul Hashem Kveit Shemai and Se'u Mincha Uveil Chatzreisa. Bring to Hashem or render to Hashem the honor to His name, Kveit Shemai, and bring a offering, Se'u Mincha, bring an offering and come to His courtyard. So the Metzudah says, honor that His name is worthy of, right? That Havul Hashem Kavod, bring the honor to Hashem, Shemai, that Hashem's name is worthy of. And take an offering over your shoulder, Su'u Mincha, carry a offering, carry it over your shoulder, the Metzudah says, where are we over here? Yeah. And come to His courtyard, which is to the Beis HaMikdash. That's where you bring the offering, you bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. The Alshich says that this pasuk is also coming to tell us that a person shouldn't think that after you bring an offering, su'u mincha, that after you bring an offering to Hashem, that you think, oh, I did something for God, now Hashem owes me one. Really, the proper approach, the proper way of thinking about when we do something for Hashem is that how lucky we are that we had the opportunity to do something for Hashem. So mincha, bring an offering and be happy that you even had the opportunity. Be proud that you had the opportunity. Not that, oh, you never have to do this, and now that I did this for God, so God better do something in return for me. No, on the contrary, be happy and be proud and that you had the opportunity to do something for Hashem. Pasuk 9, Yishtachu LaHashem b'hadras kodesh, bow down to Hashem b'hadras kodesh. Hadras kodesh, so he translates over here in resplendent holiness. This place of Hashem's holiness is splendid. The Sfarnu says, oh, and then the pasuk continues, Chilu mipanav kol haaretz, the whole world will tremble in front of him. So the Svarnu says that the trembling is from the awe of Hashem's splendor, not from the fear of punishment, as we talked about earlier, right? There's some people that are in awe of Hashem and they're afraid. There's yiras ha'inish, there's afraid of punishment. Over here, this one is saying is that chilu, the trembling over here that happens in this pasuk, is because of Hadras Kodesh, because of Hashem's splendor. And since it's because of Hashem's splendor, it's not out of fear, it's out of awe. The Alshich says that even though the whole world is filled with Hashem's glory, but it's more revealed in Hadras Kodesh, in a place of His holiness, meaning in the Beis Hamikdash. That's a place that Hashem's holiness is more revealed. The Gemara in Berachos actually learns from this pasuk. The Gemara in Berachos, where's Philip when you need him? Got bounced off. That the pasuk says, not the pasuk, the Mishnah says, that a person shouldn't start davening without a heavy head. What does it mean, a heavy head? What does it mean, a heavy head? It's a headache. When you have a headache, you should daven. Actually, the Gemara says in another place, if you have a if you have a headache, you should actually study Torah. And I'll tell you from experience, it works. Sometimes the headache is too strong and you can't, and then you need Tylenol or Advil. But getting your head involved in Torah study when you have a headache will actually make the headache disappear. There have been many, many times that I had to prepare a class, and a headache or not, I had to prepare a class, and all of a sudden I finished preparing a class, or even more, starting to teach a class, even more than that, starting to teach a class. Now I have a headache. By the time the class is over, there is no headache. It's all, you want to, you can talk about it on a physiological level as well. A headache is all about pressure. And when you're studying, you might gain a certain type of pressure, but release some other pressure. But as I state in the Gemara, but that's not what we're talking about over here. Talking about over here that you shouldn't start davening without a heavy head. What does it mean? You should recognize that there's something above you, that there's a weight above you, right? So you don't stand like this when you daven. You stand with the head a little bowed forward, right? And the Gemara uses al tikri, uses a certain way of learning from this pasuk, because it says Ishtach v'la Hashem b'hadras kodesh, bow to Hashem b'hadras kodesh, and it says al tikri b'hadras ela b'charodas, and you should have a certain awe when you daven, and that makes you be a little bit more humble with a bowed head. So that's what the Gemara talks about based on this pasuk number 9. Pasuk 10. Imru v'goyim. It actually says this pasuk is talking about the future time of Mashiach, that by the nations of the world they'll say Hashem Malach, Hashem is King, Av Tikoin, and Hashem will make sure that the world will not falter, that the world will not falter, and He'll judge the nations b'mesharim in a truthful manner. The Mitzvah says that one will say to the other, that this pasuk is saying Imru v'goyim, one person will tell another. Hashem is showing His kingship, and that Hashem is showing that He makes sure that the world doesn't falter and that He judges the world with mercy. So this is the process of the pasuk according to the Sfarnu. According to the Mitzvot. According to the Sfarnu, it's interesting, and he brings up, if you look at the words Imru v'goyim, they'll say amongst the nations Hashem Malach, Hashem. If you translated literally, it's Hashem in past tense was king. Hashem Malach. If we say it on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we say it in other times as well. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimleich, right? Hashem Melech is Hashem is king. Hashem Malach is Hashem was king. And Hashem Yimleich, Hashem will be king, right? Over here it says Hashem Malach, Hashem was king, meaning in past tense, in previous tense, right? So what is the explanation of the pasuk? So the Sforno says that the nations of the world will say that Hashem was king even when we didn't recognize it. The fact that when Mashiach comes, everybody will recognize that Hashem is king is a given. But they'll even say that, even when we didn't recognize, before Mashiach came, Hashem was king then as well. And the Sforno continues that in the future, it won't happen like the Mabul. It won't happen like in the generation of Aflaga, where when Hashem got upset at the world, he destroyed the world. When Mashiach comes, Hashem will make sure that Tevel Baltimoit, that he'll strengthen the world and he'll make sure that it will not falter. Mablay says that Hashem is not like other kings that has no space for other rulers. Hashem judges in a proper manner, and everybody, this is not, there could be, there's even a mitzvah by the Jewish people, same tasim alech melech, that they could have a king. Whether it's a proper thing or not is a story for another time, but still, there's place. Hashem is not jealous, and Hashem could run the world, even if there's other kings. Pasuk Yud Aleph, Pasuk 11, Yismecho Shemaim Zagel Aretz, Yiramayim Loyai. This pasuk and pasuk 12, Yalei Sadei V'chol Asher Boi, Aziran V'kol Atzayar. So first of all, the heavens will be joyful, the land will be joyful, the sea will roar with everything inside of it, which means like all the fish, etc., everything inside the sea. The fields will be joyful. The beginning of pasuk 12. And everything in the fields as well. And that's when we'll be joyful. All the trees of the forest. So that is pasuk 11 and 12. The Radak says that the joy of the heavens, the joy of the earth, the roar of the sea, the joy of the fields, and the singing of the trees are all an analogy of the great joy that will be because of the peace that will be and the world of goodness that will be when Mashiach comes. So all these two psukim, Yud Aleph and Yud Beis, is an analogy of the joy that will be by us, by people, when Mashiach will come, when the world will be a better place. The Alshich says that the heavens and earth will be happy from the kindness and mercy that will be drawn down to the world, which will include them, and therefore Yismecho Shemaim, they're going to be joyful because they're going to be getting a certain spiritual energy that they didn't have before when Mashiach comes, and the sea will roar. Is referring to the special Leviathan, the Leviathan, special fish that will be when Mashiach comes. Imam Leah says that in the future, a non-fruit bearing tree in the land of Israel will bear fruit. Today, there are non-fruit bearing trees. The halacha is that you're not allowed to cut down. You're not allowed to cut down a fruit bearing tree, but a non-fruit bearing tree you're allowed to cut down. So there'll be the trees that will now become fruit bearing because Mashiach will come. So they'll give thanksgiving to Hashem. They'll be joyous because now they won't be able to be chopped down because they're going to be fruit bearing. Rashi says that that in the pasuk number 12, where it says Aziranu kalatzayar, that all the trees of the forest are going to be joyful. Rashi says that this is an analogy to the nations of the world, that all the nations of the world would stand tall like trees, will be joyful when Mashiach comes. The Alshich says that when it says Yalei Sadai V'chol Asher Boi, the pasuk 12, beginning of pasuk 12, that the fields and everything therein will be jubilant, that they'll be happy, they'll be joyful. So what does it mean, everything in it? It's talking about time of Mashiach, where the animals in the field will live in peace with one another. As we know, the famous prophecy, the Garze Evim Keves, that the wolf will lie with the lamb. So that is a prophecy for the time of Mashiach. So that's why even the fields and everything in the fields, meaning the animals in fields, will have a certain level of joy that they didn't have before Mashiach. And the final pasuk to Gimel, pasuk 13, Lifnei Hashem, Yiva, In front of Hashem, Hashem will come to judge the earth. He'll judge the earth b'tzedek, with righteousness, and the nations be'emunasai, translates it over here with his truth, but emunah is really an idea of faith. So the Radak says that it says kiva kiva. Why does it say kiva kiva twice? The Radak has said this many times in chapters of Tehillim, where it says something twice. It's twice for emphasis. Hashem will come. Hashem will surely come. The Alshich says that Hashem comes lifnei Hashem. Hashem comes with rachamim, with mercy. But then there were times kiva lishbait. There were times that Hashem came and judged the earth without mercy, without rachamim. And for example, the Der Amabel by the flood, or the Der Aflaga a little bit after the flood, right? But then Yish by Tevel b'tzedek. But when Mashiach comes, now he will judge Tevel, the world, b'tzedek, with righteousness. And Hashem will do good for the nations, especially v'amim, for the nations, b'amunase, especially those who were be'amunah, which means that they were that they believed in him, meaning they were faithful to Hashem. And with that, we finish chapter 96.